Good afternoon from the Masters Battle League. My name is Nathaniel Shook, and this is the first ever episode of the Blitz. This is where we talk about Pokemon teams within the MBL, their strategies, maybe even rankings. But today what we're going to go over is the monumental draft that happened last week on Saturday, I believe. Oh no, it was on Friday. It's actually March 2nd. And we're going to have a great time kind of diving into this, and we're going to actually challenge ourselves to look at each person's draft, each team, and we're going to grade each and everyone's draft, looking into the next week for the first week of matches, and it's going to be one that is going to be a solid start to the inaugural season of the Masters Battle League. So without further ado, like I said, we're going to go over the draft analysis today from the MBL, where we're going to be looking at both the West Division and the East Division, and this should be a great time as we dive in a lot of these sets. For most of you who don't know, whether you are fans or even competitors watching this video, this is our very first time doing a draft league, and so there's a lot of like really confusing topics. Not only topics, but also team comps, Pokemon typings, and for a lot of our members, it's more Gen 6, so we had a really tough time kind of looking at, you know, who to pick up, what to do, and we implemented Zmons. Now, before we get started, I want to add that there are no Mega Evolutions in this draft league, that there are only Zmon. You can only have one Zmon. There is no point system as it is a free draft. And for those of you who don't know, there are certain bands like Pokemon such as Necrozma and Tapu Lele, as we are using the Global Battle Association Season 7 rules, and we made it to our very own. So we are looking forward to actually starting this in about a couple days, as it is Wednesday. And so you guys are hearing this. This is our draft analysis, the very first one ever. So let's give it up and let's have some fun, as this is our first ever Blitz episode 1. And what better way to start off than with the Fuchsia City Football Club, Fuchsia City FC. The coach of that team is Eric Pastor. For those of you who don't know, he's been a long-time Pokemon Showdown battler who's really into this whole draft league format. So let's just take a look at it and look at your screen. You can see there's a couple Pokemon there that are a little questionable, but we're gonna start from the very first pick. So the very first pick of his draft was actually Latios. For those of you who don't know what Latios is, it's a dragon psychic. This thing hits like a truck, and so looking at his overall team is like the OU ladder. We got Latios, Tapu Koko, Ferrothorn, Victini, Mamoswine, Cobalion, Mimikyu, Volcanion, Mandibuzz, Exploud, and Florges. So a couple things that we got to address here. His first five in Latios, Tapu Koko, Ferrothorn, Victini, and Mamoswine are huge. You see that he already started with his first pick in the Latios, picking up his dragon, the second pick being Tapu Koko, picking up the fairy, and then Ferrothorn picking up his steel type. Now what's interesting to note here is that Latios in our rankings was actually ranked 16th Pokemon in the overall Masters Battle League draft, followed by Tapu Koko at number 5 ranked, and then you have Ferrothorn at 7. What was interesting about this draft is that when he picked up Latios, he was actually going for T-Tar. However, a team ahead of him, I think at the 5 spot, I want to say, actually picked up T-Tar, and he was a little bit mad, so he's like, okay, I'm going to go straight into Latios. Picks up Latios, but then the team that went after him at the 10th spot, because he had, I think, the 9th or 8th, well, I think it was 9th pick, yeah, it was 9th pick. They go Garchomp, which super low. No, not super low. He was number 12. And then instead of going Tapu Koko, which at this time is still on the board, he goes Zapdos and going for more defensive mon. And so he was able to pick up Tapu Koko. So already we see that his team is huge with power, both in defensive bulk and offensive bulk. One thing to note, Tapu Koko can be run in a physical with Wild Charge and other moves, but he's primarily used with a more special set because of electric terrain. Setting up that terrain boost all electric moves. So you have a Volts, but you can even throw T-Volt on there. T-Volt is probably be your most hard-hitting move, and Volts, which is mainly used for Switch Initiative or for momentum. One thing to note is that he learns Dazzling Gleam, and that thing is going to hit like a truck. And so be mindful of that. So already we see the offensive pressure with Latios, Tapu Koko, with the defensive wall being a Ferrothorn. If we keep looking through it, We notice he has the Mimikyu, the Cobalion, which is in many other leagues on YouTube. He's been an absolute monster. So picking up Cobalion that early, about mid-level, especially when Cobalion was not that high on the list starting off, is he was 85 overall of the 110 that were actually picked. Actually 124 were actually ranked, and he was at 85. So more on the upper side, but still, it's not as we weren't expecting him to go that low. And he picks up the Mimikyu because he's like, okay, I need another fairy type and something to throw out there. But it was interesting because we've never seen him really use Mimikyu before, and then he busts out Volcanion. What's interesting about the Mandibuzz pick is, like, I actually think with the next team, what we're gonna look at is Cinnabar Island. You kind of needed that dark type more as a defogger, mainly as a defogger, but also to deal with the prankster sets there. So, and then the X-Plow was a great pickup. Actually stole it from the Saffron City FC, my team. I really love that X-Plow. Has huge bulk, and then his last pick in Florges. And that leads us to our next part, which is the weakness of this team. This weakness doesn't have a lot of special defense involved in it at all. You could run Volcanion Assault Vest, and for those of you who are watching who know me, you know that I like to run a lot of Assault Vest variant Pokemon and sets. So Assault Vest, Volcanion is a great kind of special tank. It can also hit offensively. But I think what you need to look out for in regard to special tanks is X-Cloud and Florges. X-Cloud in the sense that this thing with Assault Vest is insane. I'll drop my pen. Is insane, and on top of that, it knows Boom Burst at a base 140 attack with 100% accuracy. So this thing, though it was late in the draft, was targeted by a couple people in the draft because of how great Boom Burst is, but it still puts him in a situation where there's no viable recovery. If you look at this team, that's the biggest part. Yes, you have Roost and Mandibuzz, but there's no way to wish past that health. There's no way to gain a lot of health back once you set up. Mandibuzz is the only one with the ability to roost. I think maybe Latios, but I have not checked, so don't quote me on that. And then you have Ferrothorn with, I believe, not Synthesis, but you have Leech Seed, and you also have Giga Drain on a couple stuff pretty powerful below. So Florges was the only one he can take late in the draft as a way to wish and have some special bulk. But that's kind of what we see here, though. It's very hyper offensive from face value. It honestly does. But even despite all of that, we gave it a grade of an A. It's a good draft. It covers a lot of weaknesses. It covers a lot. It has a lot of coverage, and you don't know what set's going to happen. You don't know what that Tapu Koko was packing. You don't know what Latios is packing. And on top of that, he made a decision to make Latios his Z-Mon, which means those Draco Meteors with Devastating Drake are coming in so hard at such a high power with an already a 130 base special attack. So we give an A to Fuchsia City as they look to be probably the highest ranked or highest graded team in the West Conference, I believe. And so props to Eric Pastor. It was a great draft by him, and he really played this like so well. Like his draft was gorgeous. Which leads us to our next one, which is the next highest grade in the teams of the West Side. We got Cinnabar Island FC, and I already know what you're gonna say. That team's weird. I don't know if I like that team. And if you're talking with Philip Shook, who is the coach of Cinnabar Island, you would probably say the same thing. That's kind of a weird team. I'm not sure how I feel about it. So his first overall pick was Landorus T, as he thought, you know, this is easily the best one, easily the best Mon in the draft. It was ranked at 3, but with Intimidate with a base 145 attack. Hello? And you have 91 speed on top of already kind of a bulky type of distribution of stats in 90 defense and 80 special defense, which isn't saying much, but he has bulk and he has 89 HP. But don't get it sick and twisted, he still has 105 in special attack. So you're looking at this Mon, you're like, okay, well, Ice is a problem. But what you get in return for it, I mean, you got a fast Stealth Rocker who hits with Earthquake at 145 base attack. And so after that, he had, I believe he picked Keldeo, which is a great pick. It's a water pick. It'll help him out with the Landorus problem. And then he goes into the nastiest pick, I think, in the draft. And so, you know, for facing off the top 3 picks in the draft, I think Cinnabar Island had probably the strongest showing, besides Eric Pastor with the Fuchsia City FC, with Latios, Tapu Koko, and Ferrothorn. He picks up Kartana. Now, it's not as bulky as Eric's. But what this Kartana can do is absolutely ridiculous. You're looking at a Pokemon that is packing, and I'm looking for it right now. He's packing I'm getting real close. 181 physical attack with 131 base defense, and he's running at 109 speed. You put that thing in any situation, it's a threat. I know, and it has no. And the way you beat this is he has no special defense, so you kind of just breathe on it and it kind of just topples over. But the reality is, and this is what amazed me even more after the draft's done, he slaps his like that's my Zmon, and with Beast Boost, which a lot of people are sleeping on in this draft, Beast Boost is pretty much the highest stat in the actual Pokemon set, gets boosted after it KOs a Pokemon. And for Kartana at 181 with the Zmon, as a Zmon, he just clicks whatever Z crystal he has on it for whatever move he has running that set, and he will OHKO that thing so hard unless someone has to base their entire strategy around this Kartana and containing it and killing it off fast. But here's what's crazy, and I'm starting to rethink maybe the B+ wasn't as good, but it's B+ for specific reasons. We'll get to it. Is that if that doesn't work, guess what? He has a regenerator core in Tangrowth and Slowking, and so he has to be able to switch off from. And then he also has two Prankster sets in Sableye and Thundurus Incarnate. I'm going to let that sink in for a little bit, that he can just run those 4 mons in and of itself, making a status affecting team and wear you down with Regenerator. On top of the fact that he has a Bisharp, which is the second hardest hitting knockoff user besides Tyranitar, and he picked up Kyurem in the very last spot in the draft, which props to Philip Shook for that pick. That was probably the steal of the draft right there. AV Kyurem, Choice Scarf Kyurem can throw off a lot of people off, but he really made sure that he could protect the Landorus in most instances, and has good coverage overall. His questionable ones, and this is why it gets a little bit more into the B+, where I'm like, okay, what are you going to do with it? The Sableye was a very early pick, and so he had to really sacrifice a lot of the other ones that he could have used for that Sableye. I'm not saying it's a bad pick. It will go into good use, as there's not a lot of teams with dark types, as we'll find out. But Diancie has a great way of getting Stealth Rocks on, except no reliable recovery, and that's where the pitfalls of Diancie being his only fairy type, and that's the glaring issue, is that that's his only fairy type. He has one steel type in Bisharp, and then if we're looking at dragons, he has Kyurem. So that main wall that we're looking for in typical sets, because typically in Draft League you want to focus on getting a Fire, Water, Grass Coral, or a Steel, Fairy, and Dragon Core. The Steel, Fairy, Dragon Core is there, but we're looking at mons who typically you wouldn't want to run as that core, and especially with a Fairy type in Diancie, who does not have reliable recovery, and most of these people on this team don't have the means to recover, and that's where the problem is, and that's where we're seeing, okay, this is gonna be a B+ thing. All right, so on top of that, we also have the wonderful. Oh, pardon me, real fast. We're gonna pause this recording. Yeah, hold on, real fast, because we forgot to put this on. Yeah. All right. So along with that, we also have now Pallet Town. So excuse me for leaving here. Pallet Town had an interesting draft. Very interesting draft, and I'm not sure how I agree with kind of the logic there. His first pick was Mew, and having that as a Zmon means you can pretty much do whatever it wants. And he established the Steel, Fairy, Dragon Core really fast. And I mean like extremely fast. His next picks are Tapu Bulu, Dragonite, and Skarmory. So bam. And these are like premier like Steel, Dragon, and Fairy types. And they're very high on the list. We have Skarmory at rank 22, Dragonite at 24, and Tapu Bulu at 15. And Mew is sitting at a nice 27. So it was in that mid-range, because he said, oh, those are value picks. Those are value picks that I can get all the way across the board. And we'll see what happens, but again, he has no real standout one. I would say the most standout Pokemon he has is going to be Tapu Bulu. But as we go through here and we look at his team in general, we start to notice ice is not something he wants to deal with, and on top of that, anything with Thunderbolt, really don't want to mess with. And you can say, oh well, okay, you can wall it out with Tentacruel and Blissey. You're right, but if something gets caught with that, ice destroys Dragonite, it destroys Tornadus, it rocks Tapu Bulu, it rocks Breloom, it rocks Crocodile. That's just ice, okay? Just ice alone, okay? And then with Thunderbolt, you got Tentacruel's not going to appreciate that. Tornadus ain't going to appreciate that. Skarmory isn't going to appreciate that. And that's 3 of them. So there's an evident ice and an electric typing that was just missed. And you can change that around with Blissey and Assault Vest Conkeldurr and kind of play with this whole electric immunity with Crocodile. But I think a couple Pokemon that we gotta look at our sleepers in this pick is Blacephalon, which has not been explored by each coach in this draft league, and also Breloom kind of was a great value pick late down because those bullet seeds are disgusting, and you can run Mach Punch, so you could run a Choice Bandit set if you wanted to with Mach Punch and sweep up, or you can run a Choice Scarf set, which is probably the more beneficial one, and outspeed crap all day. And on top of that, you have Mew, which, by the way, remember guys, we are still doing GBA Season 7 rules, so Munium Z is not available, but regardless, he learns every move in the gosh darn game. So you can run Mew Z, and that's unreal. That is unreal. But we did give him a we did give him a B because there are glaring issues, a lot of flying, and then again he went for value picks. So there's not that real one standout one that's going to do a lot of damage, and it's a very bulky team. You got Bulk and Tornadus with Regenerator. You got Bulk and Skarmory with Spike, Stealth Rocks. You got Bulk with Dragonite, who can be a sweeper. I understand that, but it's more of a setup sweeper. And you got a hard, bulky Tapu Koko with a bulky Conkeldurr and Blissey with a potentially bulky Tentacruel and potentially bulky Mew. So it's a very heavy team. Speed-wise, not the greatest. You can make that up with obviously some Choice Scarfs, but the speed tier in this one is just not where it needs to be, and he's going to have a lot of difficulty getting around that type of speed problem, which may regard in just making bulkier sets, take the hit, then just crush them later, or Choice Scarfing. Overall, like his team, we gave him a B. Again, these are threats. Like these are just threats. And Mew being his Zmon is going to be interesting. And honestly, if I had to choose who was going to take a lot of the kills in this league, it's going to be Breloom, Dragonite, and honestly on his team probably Mew. Those are going to be his top 3 really go-to killers. Maybe Crook, but I think these 3 have shown in previous leagues outside of ours that these 3 Mons have put in a lot of work. And we hope that Pallet Town puts in a lot of work, kind of like Viridian City, which arguably is one of my favorite teams in the draft. I know it says a nice little C right below, but don't let that get you like confused. This team is fire. This team hits like a truck. Okay, first pick in the draft goes to Heatran, smack dab. There's your steal one. A huge check to Magearna, who was our #1 overall. Heatran at 4, and then she slides down the list ever so slightly and picks up a Togekiss. I believe second round for the fairy typing, and that one was surprising because again, all this time Manaphy is still on the board, and then right after that it picks up Manaphy and then slaps on Latios, and then has the arguably best stealth rocker in the game in Nihilego, and then has the classic special sweeper in Gengar and the special and defensive tank in Cresselia, and I think in some leagues the kill MVP in Terrakion, and then for utility has Electros and Whimsicott with Heracross as an added bonus just for a nice flavor in the team. The Heracross was kind of an iffy pick, I'm going to be real honest with you. Not something you would typically go. You can't have Mega Evolutions as we discussed before, so the Heracross was kind of a weird one coming out. But Electros is great because you can't get hit by ground, and it's Electric type, and it knows a lot of coverage. Along with that, speaking of coverage, Gengar knows a ample amount of coverage and honestly can abuse Destiny Bond a lot with either a Focus Sash or a Choice Scarf set. So this is going to be a very offensive pressured team. Now, it's not get confused. There's a lot of bulk here. There's a lot of bulk here with Togekiss. There's a lot of bulk with Latios. There can be a lot of bulk with Assault Vest Electros. And there's a huge amount of bulk in Cresselia. But one thing we gotta understand here is that Manaphy as a Z-Mon is insane. With one Tail Glow, with a Hydro Pump on its set, and using its Z Crystal and Waterium Z, I believe that's how you pronounce it, with Hydro Vortex, with one Tail Glow up, you can OHKO Celesteal that resists that. Tail Glow is able to raise that person's special defense by 2. Not special defense, special attack by 2. So you slap this thing on there with some speed, Tail Glow, if you live that first shot, this thing is going to sweep. Now, as you look at this team, what you're going to notice is there's a lot of special attackers or specially based Pokemon, and that's where the problem is. Yes, you have Terrakion, and yes, you have Heracross, but there is nothing on the physical side here, guys. You can run Heatran all you want, but he's got 90 attack, and in comparison to his 130 special attack, dude, why would you? Why would you? I think the only thing you can make physical is Manaphy, but even still, as you look at Manaphy's set list, it's the coverage isn't that great. I mean, it's good, but it's not great, and so it's going to be used for more of a water nuke than anything else. And she has to bring Terrakion a lot if she wants to get through bulky physical teams, and that's something that maybe she doesn't want to deal with. Or if someone checks it with special defense, needs to bring Terrakion to break those down. And so Terrakion almost becomes a shoo-in depending on the team she's facing. Now there are ways to deal with this. Obviously, you have Nihilego, or whatever. Poison Rock type. Looks like jellyfish. Thing no Stealth Rock, and it is so fast. I'm trying to look here so you can find it. This thing, it went early, and for good reasons. I know she was looking at it, and because it's a so it's a Ultra Beast with 109 HP. Like this thing with 127 special attack, 115 special defense. If I'm reading this right, no, I'm not. Yeah, 131 special defense, 127 special attack, and then 103 speed with 109 base HP. So it's rock, so it's got self blocks. It's a poison type, so fairy types can roll and just mow it down, absolutely mow it down. But the reason why we get this team with C is that the synergy is kind of weird. Is that once you hit Nihilego, you kind of just like you're trying to find where it is. You got the Fairy, Steel, and Dragon Core. But that's really kind of it. A lot of these are just more like special bulk. Cresselia was a great pickup. Terrakion's a great pickup. And Manaphy Z as a Z-Mon is insanely good. And people sleep on that all day. But outside that, the identity of this is more just special walls and special attackers. And that's why it's a C. Now, do I think this team will wreck face? Yeah. I think it's scary as all get out. But it just from face value on paper, this team has got a lot of issues they got to address because it's just special. It's just special. That's why it gets a C. And we want to see more of how she will adapt. Maybe she uses the waivers a little bit more. But upon our draft analysis, that's a grade of C. And the speed tiers are a concern. Manaphy is at base 100. Gengar is fast. Nihilego is fast. Whimsicott is fast. Terrakion is fast. So she has decent speed tiers now. I'm looking at it, but there's a lot of bulk, and we're just wondering, what are you going to do with the team? I think that's the question moving forward, is that what does this team do on paper? What can it do, and what will it do? And you can just guess it's going to be special. It's going to be a special attacker, and that's about it. If you got special bulk on your team, you're gonna have a real good time with this team. So that's something that for Viridian City FC they really need to look at it. Cheyenne is the coach of Viridian, and so she'll have to go through a lot of the waivers and see like what do I want. And I don't think I would go in waivers now. I'll probably wait, see how week 1 is. But as of right now, it's a grade of C. I want to see more because she might use it, and that C might be a phenomenal team later on. leads us to our last team in the West Division. We have the Pewter City FC Pokemon team from MLB with our boy Chris Tenney as the coach, and his first pick was Tyranitar. And if you told me that he was going to make a sand team, I would say that is dumb, because who uses sand team anymore? But this man right here drafted Tyranitar, Magnezone, and then slapped Excadrill on that. And guess what? No one knew he had a sand team until 11 p.m. that night when we got done with the draft. This guy made a sand team in Tyranitar, Magnezone, Excadrill, then slapped Buzzwole on there. This thing is physically, this team is just physically just a wall. It's just a wall, dude. Now, fighting types are going to have a field day. Fighting types are going to have a field day. And that's primarily why this grade is a B. The synergy is decent on this team. Fighting types blow this thing up to smithereens, especially the first couple picks. But what was interesting in this draft is that after those first really solid draft picks, we're looking at Ninetales Alolan form. And it seems like it counteracts the overall feel of that sand team being ground and rock. Because for those of you who don't know, if you are a rock type and sand is up, dude, I believe your defense, or no, your special defense goes up by, I want to say 0.2, maybe 0.5. I don't think it's 0.5, I think it's 0.2. But it goes up exponentially from where it was before. Almost like a built-in assault vest to a certain degree. And so I usually run Tyranitar with an assault vest, because I'm cheeky like that, with the Sandstream, and so his special defense can actually take a very solid focus blast from, I want to say Alexam, but I think that's reaching a little bit. I know from a Gengar focus blast, this thing's taking it. A couple fighting moves and a couple grass moves as well, but do I think that's going to be utilized? I have no idea. I couldn't tell you off of face value. So the Alolan Ninetales pick was really kind of an iffy one. I don't know if I would typically do that. Then he goes in with a solid pick in Metagross. Psychic Fairy type. That was a great value pick too, because it should have gone higher, but it didn't. And so now he has two steel types that will resist the sand in Magnezone and Metagross. But as you start looking down his team, you start to see some glaring issues here. Scolipede, now remember in this league, since we are doing GBA Season 7 rules, baton passing speed boost is not a thing. So Scolipede's usefulness is going to be more of just a fast physical sweeper, not much of a baton passer to pass the speed to someone else. Then he picked up Quagsire, which is good for, especially for an unaware one. It has good typing in water and ground, which will help out in his team. I don't know if it won't be boosted by sand by any means, but it's a water type that's bulky, that can take hits, and its only weakness is grass, and it's really, really important. Again, like I said, as we start looking at this thing, you're going to notice some kind of wonky, like, I'm not sure. You have Haxorus, and this thing, freaking, I think it's like, what, 147 base attack, and it's not an Ultra Beast. No, this thing's a dragon. And he picked up his dragon super late in there, his fairies and Ninetales. So he got his Steel and Magnezone, his Steel and Excadrill, and he got his Ninetales with the fairy pick and the Haxorus as his dragon. And you can scarf that bad boy. You can. So there's a lot of utility here with the Haxorus. You can run them a couple different ways. I mean, obviously it's going to be a physical attacker. Bulky, making it bulky, yeah, I mean, I guess you can, but it's primarily, I would personally say either Choice Band, Life Orb, or Choice Scarf, that one. And then he also picked up a Yanmega, which Chris has said that he has extensive work with. And so I know for a couple teams, Yanmega is really scary. One, you don't know what it wants to do, but remember, it also has speed boost, and it knows a very powerful Bug Buzz move and some flying moves. And that's going to be a problem. And then this last one is Kingdra. It's another dragon type, a little bit bulky, with water added on there as part of his typing. This was an interesting pick at the very end. It's like he's trying to counteract a potential rain team. And so it's very confusing kind of to see where Chris wanted to go with this team. But overall, it's good. These are all physical tanks. They can easily be switched to a special tank as well. Minus Buzzwole, probably Excadrill as well. Ninetales is pretty frail, but again, you can utilize that as a sweeper to no end. So he gave us a little bit more. This was easier to kind of grade because it hits both physically, it hits both specially with tanks, and you can come up with some really surprising sets. And obviously with him setting up the sand team, and that's just brilliant drafting, knowing your strengths and weaknesses and going from there. So we gave this one a B. We thought this was a really good draft by Chris. It was phenomenal, and we enjoyed him really coming in and just wrecking shop. It was great. It was phenomenal, and I love it. Which leads us to the West Division in regards to our draft grades, which we gave him a B for. We're going to look at the overall draft analysis and who probably did the best in the West Division. And so looks a little odd here with the draft sleepers. We're going to get to it. So the best drafted team is got to be Fuchsia City with Eric Pastor. That team is scary as all get out, and I would not want to face it personally. You got physical special walls, you got physical and special sweepers, and you pretty much have half of the O-year tier list. And if you look through the hard copies, like if a player looks through it, or if you want to request kind of like what the rankings are, it's mind-numbing how insane that team is going in, and easily the favorite coming out of the West Division. After that, we have Cinnabar Island. As we talked about before, Kartana is a massive threat. And I won't go into detail pretty much about teams because I know they're trying to protect some of the sets that we have yet to play week 1. But that team, though it looks weird on paper, that thing is a beast of a team. The Landorus, Keldeo, Kartana, Tangrowth with the Regenerator Core with Slow King, and then Prankster with Sableye, and Thunderous Incarnate, which, by the way, hits like a truck on the special side, and knows Prankster. And you can come up with some pretty ingenious sets with Prankster and with that Regenerator Core. It's something that you cannot sleep on, and that's why he's up so high. After that is Pallet Town, though he has kind of a weird kind of set. He hits both on he hits both needed areas in special and physical sides, both in sweeping and also in bulk for defensive purposes. So Pallet Town is a little higher. That one's kind of a wonky one because you don't know how it's really going to turn out. And that's where our concern is going forward based off on paper is what can you do with this thing with such an ice weakness and such an electric weakness? What can you do? But overall, he hits every basis. Focused really good on the cores. Had both Fairy, Steel, and Dragon Core. And had also a Fire, Water, and Grass Core. So he did his research and he's on point with that. So we're going to be interested to see what he does next. Pewter City and then Viridian. These ones, I spelled Sati, not City, so I apologize for that. But well, these ones are kind of interchangeable, which leads me to our sleeper picks. Though these teams may have had flaws in their drafts, and though, like, for Viridian specifically, like, though it might all be special, you honestly, you can't sleep on it. They have threats on those teams that you cannot, like, take for granted. Gengar, surprisingly, will be a threat. I mean, when was the last time you saw Gengar? And that's what's insane about this. Then you have Manaphy as a Zmon. That's insane as well. I'm just saying. And then Pewter City with the Sand Team, which I have not seen a Sand Team since I think like Gen 5 with Garchomp, when Excadrill was first running around. Like this is going to be dangerous, folks. And so my sleeper mainly is Pewter because he can cover a lot of areas. And with Viridian, because maybe some adjustments, but even could help. But even maybe the play style, just the mentality, she could switch it up, and that could be a great team. So you look at Pallet Town, Pewter City, and a Viridian City or Sati as potential. All of them can be interchangeable. I expect Fuchsia City and Cinnabar Island FC to really hold their own weight, especially with the draft and what they got. Really good picks, really solid. So congrats to you guys, and here's to a wonderful season as we start the season on March 10th, which is a Saturday, with a little bit of out of conference, a little bit in conference, but it'll be at around 11 or even 12 depending on what people want, and we'll see how good these teams play for their first weekend matches. And so that's our show for our first episode of the Blitz. We talked about our draft analysis for the West, and so we will see you next time where we will go over the East Division. We're talking about their draft picks and how and why their draft picks weren't as good as the West, and how the East needs to show us that they're actually worth our time. So thank you for tuning in. This has been the Blitz. I have been Nathaniel Shook from Saffron City FC. I will see you next time on the Blitz.